In the previous video, the protagonist ended up getting lost in the market while she was walking with her new friends, and Captain Ri ran to the place worried about the woman. When he found her, Saeri's eyes were ready to cry. I'm Nina and today's recap will be Crash Landing on You. When the two are returning home, Ri Zhang believes that the time has come to tell the protagonist about his fiancée so that there is no confusion about whether she is developing feelings for him. And the scammer, who had just left Xiao Dan at the captain's house, passes by them and immediately recognizes Saeri. However, he thinks it could have been someone very similar, as he thinks the woman would have no reason to be in that place. Meanwhile, Xiao Dan is still waiting in front of Ri Zhang's house. As the wives in the neighborhood are very curious, they go to the woman to ask what she is waiting for or looking for in the place. And when they discover that Xiao Dan is Captain Ri's fiancé, they are shocked that the man has committed to two women, and soon gossip spreads among the women in the neighborhood. Saeri and Ri Zhang have not yet arrived at the residence. The two are talking about how if the woman who is his real fiancé appeared there, it would ruin their cover. However, the man says that this will not happen as she is in another country. However, as soon as they turn the corner, there is the original bride. Xiao Dan ignores that the protagonist is with her fiancé at first contact, but after he introduces the woman as a partner on a mission, he decides to question whether, after the task is completed, they will no longer see each other. And the captain says yes, they will no longer have contact. So Saeri decides to get out of the situation and says that she will go home, but Ri Zhang takes her arm and takes her to the gate of his house, then tells the woman to go in, as it is very dark in the streets. The man is going to take his fiancée to her house, and on the way, Xiao Dan says that she knows the love between them is missing, but she is doing everything in order to work and asks Captain Ri to cooperate. As soon as the two arrive at the place where she lives, her uncle drags him in to go in and greet the rest of the family, in this case his bride's mother. The woman insists that he stay for dinner, and as he doesn't have much choice, the man ends up accepting. In the next scene, we see the scammer in his new home, thinking about a date he had with the protagonist, which didn't go very well, but it made the man realize her intelligence, as she made it clear that they wouldn't have a second date and that she knew that he was laying the groundwork for something bigger, so he said Sung Jun should take her brother's money and go far away. Meanwhile, Saeri receives a visit from the neighborhood women. They went to console the protagonist, as they all know about the second bride, which in this case would be the original. They bring beer and fish to eat, then start criticizing Captain Ri for putting Xiao Dan in the car and taking her home. The women begin to feel sorry for their friend, as they think the man is going to abandon her. And the leader believes that they must do something to teach Ri Zhang a lesson, which makes the protagonist desperate to calm them down. The senior colonel's wife was so angry that she said she would tell her husband to give the captain a disadvantage in the army, as he was an immoral person. So Saeri has to think of something quickly to stop the woman from doing this. The protagonist says that she and the captain are like Korea's Romeo and Juliet, that her parents don't agree with their relationship, and that's why they found another one for the man. And incredible as it may seem, this worked with the wives, who became sentimental about the story and agreed to just drink, eat, and gossip. Captain Ri goes to his parents' house after dinner with Xiao Dan's family instead. He makes a request to his father that he get a place for Saeri on the team of athletes who are going to leave the country, and his father says he will do it. However, if something happens and they find out, the man won't be able to do anything. Returning to Saeri, before the women leave, she talks to young Ae and explains that if Ri Zhang gets the star, he needs to be promoted. Suddenly, his parents will become more generous and let the couple stay together, and for that, he needs this to happen first. And the woman promises to talk to the senior colonel about it. The next morning, when the captain arrives, he tells him about the plan to send the protagonist on the athlete team out of the country, and he hears everything. So Saeri needs to take a photo for her new passport and go to the city to do this before she needs to change her haircut and buy some new clothes that suit the place they are in. The protagonist is out of money, so she decides to pawn her watch to earn a few bucks and ends up finding another original watch instead, which makes her wonder why it is there. And the seller explains that the man who left him didn't even accept money, he just handed it over and never came back. In the next scene, we see Mr. Cho with that wire. The man comments about never finding that watch that belonged to Captain Ri's brother, the same one who was in the pawn shop, and asks if the wire has anything to do with it. When he goes to work, the captain can't find his soldiers, so he tries to find out what happened to them and discovers that the State Security Department is interrogating them. However, none of the boys told them what was happening, and Ri Jong went to the place to release them. When he arrives, the captain tells Mr. Cho that if he is curious about something in Ri Jong's life, just ask. He adds that he must start telling the truth about the things the man is involved in. Then the phone rings and Mr. Cho discovers that he is being investigated. Meanwhile, Se-ri defends her son from listening to other children and teaches him that he must stand up against his bullies. And we see that the protagonist's right-hand man got a recording that proves that the woman is alive. A radio picked up the same frequency that she was using for the walk-talk on that day. In the next scene, Se-hyung meets one of the men who helped the scammer escape to North Korea and tells him that she will pay 10 times more than Sung-joon if they hand him over. And returning to the protagonist, the soldiers are all having dinner at Ri Jong's house, and the man is feeling guilty about seeing his companions all injured. The protagonist knows that she is the reason for all this, so since she has nothing to give to thank them, she makes a little heart for everyone. Which leaves men shocked, as they believe that it is like a declaration of love, but in the end they come to a consensus that it shouldn't be that. And we see that the man listening in his house remembers the day that Captain Ri's brother helped him. Some men were beating him for doing his job and saying what he heard. The man arrived at the place and ordered everyone to leave him alone. Peace, then he extended his hand to listen. Remembering this scene made the man emotional. The next day, the protagonist and Ri Jong are going to the place where the passport photo is taken. However, on the way, they end up facing a setback. The train needs maintenance, and they spend hours waiting for it to be fixed. In the end, the two need to sleep outside, as it is very cold inside the train, so the captain lit a fire and bought blankets, food, and everything else that would make the protagonist more comfortable. And the next day, they managed to get to the place to take the photo. Se-ri even suggested that the two take one to keep as a souvenir for when they no longer see each other, but the captain doesn't think it's necessary. But when the protagonist was no longer around, he asked for an extra photo of the ones she took so he could keep it for himself. Meanwhile, the scammer is also in the same hotel where the protagonist is staying, and the men he paid to protect him in the country betrayed his trust when they tried to hand him over to Se-hyung, so Sung-joon needs to escape from them. When the man is at the hotel reception on the phone with Se-hyung, he comes across Se-ri and decides to ask her brother how the woman is. Sung-joon receives the answer that the protagonist ended up losing her life. Then he hangs up the phone and pulls Se-ri to the elevator, so the two can talk. However, the captain follows them and stops Sung-joon. Se-ri explains to Ri Jong that he knows this man and tells the scammer that the captain is your security guard. But the two left a scheduled meeting to talk later. Ri Jong asks the protagonist how they met and discovers that her brothers arranged a marriage for her with this man so that she could live in another country and they would no longer need to see her. Se-ri comments that her brothers must be jumping for joy because they think she is dead, and the captain says that she is talking nonsense because, no matter how much they have had disagreements, in the end they are still family, and they wouldn't want that. While they are talking, a woman who knows Seo-dan enters the restaurant and makes a call to the original bride to tell her that the captain is on a date with someone else. Seo-dan calmly explained to the woman that he was aware and they were just co-workers, but inside his blood was boiling. Then he stops what he was doing and tells his mother that the couple's parents will have dinner together that night, then goes to the hotel where Se-ri and Ri Jong are staying. Sung-joon ends up being caught by the men who want to hand him over to the protagonist's brother, and they leave the scammer very hurt. They give Sung-joon the cell phone so Sung-joon can talk to Se-hyung, and to escape losing his life, the scammer thinks about using the advantage of knowing where Se-ri is to his advantage. So the two make a deal. Sung-joon will have to hold the woman in North Korea and make sure she never comes back, so he will forgive the money that was stolen and leave them alone. When Seo Dan arrives at the hotel, he quickly gets the number of rooms the two are in due to having contact with the owner and catches them leaving the same room. Of course, the woman didn't like it and told the captain that that night they would have dinner with their parents. Afterwards, Seo Dan goes up to the roof of the hotel and ends up meeting Sungjun there. The two start talking, and he gives her tips on how to win over Captain Ri. The woman also gives tips to the man, but on how to deal with money. Later, Seo Dan discovers that the scammer also knows the woman who is disturbing her and her fiancé's relationship when he sees them talking at the hotel. And at dinner, Seo Dan's mother says a lot of nonsense, but in the end, it results in something, as Ri Jong's father ended up setting the wedding date. Returning to the protagonist, when she is in the bathroom, Seo Dan enters and says that she is a very sociable woman, to say the least, as she goes to the hotel with one man and has coffee with another. Seo Dan takes advantage and already comments that they have decided on the wedding date, making it clear that Se-ri being away from them is the best gift a woman can give. The protagonist returns to her meeting and asks Sungjun for a favor. She wants the man to inform her father that she is still alive and for him to continue with her plan to take over the company, as she will soon return home. Se-ri's brother was listening to everything, and that's why he wants her to stay in place so much. After a while, the captain goes to the two and tells the protagonist that it's time to end the meeting. He really doesn't like or trust the scammer. Then the two go to a restaurant to eat fried chicken and drink beer, something Se-ri missed doing. The next day, Mr. Cho goes to the State Security Department to be interrogated and manages to be released very quickly after putting on the table the wrong things that the man who was interrogating him did. And Mr. Cho talks to the senior colonel. As soon as he leaves, it seems like the colonel helped him figure out these things about who interrogated him, and Mr. Cho says he's part of his family now. Afterwards, Mr. Cho goes to Sungjun's house, and the scammer asks the man to keep one more person in the house besides him, which would be Se-ri. When showing the photo to Mr. Cho, he recognizes it at the time. Whoever it is, and the two of them plan something to catch her when she is going to the airport to leave the country. The listener knows all the information necessary for that. Returning, the protagonist tells the women in the neighborhood that she will leave so that the captain and his original bride can live in peace, which is a great excuse for when she leaves the country, and the women are upset to hear about it. The next day, the soldiers and Se-ri go to a picnic to celebrate the woman's departure from the country, and she receives a poem written by them. The captain only participates at the end, as he was preparing for the day the protagonist leaves. The man took some weapons, improved his motorcycle, and will follow her car without her knowing so that he can protect her if something happens. At night, when the woman is saying goodbye to the captain, she confesses that she will miss him and that he is one of the boys who is part of the group of soldiers who will take her to the airport. As soon as the car leaves the scene, the listener tells Mr. Cho to put the trucks into action. Then, on the way, trucks start to appear, and the boy even manages to dodge them well. The captain's help was extremely necessary. He managed to stop one truck, and so only the other continued following the car. But at a certain point, the two are trapped in the vehicle and are unable to get out. While the remaining truck comes towards them, what saves them is Ri Jong with the motorcycle, who throws it in front of the vehicle and then shoots it to explode and stop it. However, the truck driver was still alive, and when the captain was seeing if Se-ri was hurt, the boy and he ended up being shot, but before he went out, Ri Jong shot the driver. And the protagonist finds herself feeling desperate without knowing what to do. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share to help me. Until next time.